Hey guys, it's quote unquote your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. You can't see the title of Casey's video in this, but it's I almost deleted this entire channel, and then parentheses, end of masculinity content forever, end parentheses. You are gonna want to hide the women and children for this one. This is pretty bad. This is Casey going on, I guess what can only be described as a quarter-life crisis. It's apparently he's been dealing with some shit over these last few months. At one point in the video, he mentions 18 months. So I'm not totally sure what's going on with him. The first part of the video I'm going to skip over. It's him talking about how the name Xander literally translates into defender of man. And he was saying that, like, this, is a sign, and I can't tell if it was, like, at least somewhat tongue-in-cheek. He said, this is a sign that I am supposed to, like, defend masculinity or something. And, but I'm not sure if maybe he realizes this, maybe he doesn't, but the defender of man would have meant defender of people. That's what the name is trying to say. It doesn't mean that's how people used the word man back then. They used man like as a synonym for human. So they didn't mean like man as in man and woman. So I'm not sure if Casey just doesn't understand that, or like I said, it might have been partially tongue in cheek. So they meant defender of man in a different way. And then he also said that Casey apparently means, like, watchman or something. So I guess that I don't know, like, I'm the one who's, like, usually gives credence to this kind of stuff, but in this case, I just think it's a coincidence. I'm sorry, I don't think Casey was destined to do this, at least, well, I don't know, it depends what you mean by that. I guess it depends on how much you believe in free will. Okay. So, he is, like I said, he's going through a quarter-life crisis, so let's get into it. Let's see, we want to start at 5:03, is when he gets into it. The meat and beans, as Casey likes to say. He's back to the whiteboard, so you know he means business. Let's get it on the road. Ready? Begin.
You obviously have life and you have purpose and you need to find that for a reason, and I truly believe that, and I believe that God gave me life, so it's my duty to please Him.
Casey. Okay. I'm with you. I'm with you, but God doesn't want you to go on YouTube and spurg about masculinity. That's not, I don't think that's really what God's looking for. What he's looking for is virtue. He wants to see the same thing with anybody else, right? He wants to see you behave in a virtuous manner. And, in some ways, I'm sure you're doing that. And in some ways, you're doing, really just the opposite, if we're being honest. And, selling snake oil is not virtuous. And, spurging about masculinity to people who are, just as or even more insecure than you are, it's not virtuous. So, I mean, your head might kind of be in the right place here, but you're going about it in the wrong way. So let's skip to 6:40. 6:15. Oops. All right, good, close enough.
Long-winded here, I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from. Now, what's my whole goal with how I plan to live to reach my masculine potential? My whole goal is to have uncompromising beliefs, no matter.
That's not really a goal. That's not really a goal. You either have uncompromising beliefs or you don't. And one is not necessarily any better than the other, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with masculinity. Now, I mean, I think, like, I'm not even certain what you're saying. Like, I think almost everybody has some uncompromising beliefs. They may not behave uncompromising about them, but there are certain beliefs that they have that they can't be dissuaded from. You know, uncompromised, like, are absolute. Like, for instance, thinking it's wrong to torture animals for fun. I mean, if somebody thinks that, I mean, again, they might not be courageous in protecting animals or even, you know, care about protecting animals, but they're not going to change that belief that you shouldn't do it or that's wrong. There's no compromise there for it. So I don't think, I think what Casey is trying to say is that he wants to be uncompromising in the beliefs that he already has, but what he said is that his goal is to have uncompromising beliefs. And this may be a bit of a nitpick on my part, but it's just that what he's like actually articulating and what I'm pretty sure he means are just, there's just such a chasm there that that it's really confusing. So what Casey is saying is that he wants to be uncompromising in his core beliefs, to not just to the things that he believes absolutely. He wants to act in accordance with those beliefs, and that I guess he hasn't always behaved in accordance with those beliefs. So he wants to start behaving to basically put his money where his mouth is. Okay, that's good. I mean, you know, I don't know if necessarily all the beliefs he has are good, but in and of itself, I think that's a good thing. So we will continue. We are next going to 734. There we go.
Right, to help me become a better, more masculine man, okay, is to never swear again, okay? And never swear again, specifically on this channel or when I'm talking to you guys. And the reason being is because I think it makes me a weaker man, and here's why. The reason why is because words become reality, okay? And oftentimes people don't swear with
I'm gonna have to give him at least partial credit for this one. First thing I want to say is, at least directly, you're not going to become any more masculine from not swearing. I don't even think there's necessarily anything wrong with swearing, but there's plenty of super masculine men out there who swear like drunken sailors. In fact, drunken sailors themselves are very masculine. Depending on how you define it. You know, I think Casey often has trouble, like, he conflates, like, masculinity and virtue, and it just, like, he doesn't know, like, where to draw the line. Like, a drunken sailor who's a rapist and murderer and coward or something, but is also really hairy and burly, and, you know, drinks and fights and swears and smokes. Like, that guy is a really masculine guy, but in Casey's view, it's like, oh no, he's not masculine because he's weak or doing bad, like, stuff like that. But it is kind of, it's very blurry, you know, how Casey defines. Casey almost seems to define as masculine as a man who looks and behaves the way I think that I, Casey Zander, think men should look and behave. That's how it seems to be how Casey defines masculine, which is not how most people define it. But the thing he said about not swearing, I don't necessarily think swearing is a huge deal. I do think there's something to the whole words become a reality thing. And, you know, what I mean, Beck, is, you know, in Buddhism, I've talked about it before. I'm not a Buddhist, but you can learn a lot from them. You know, there's nothing really you can do about feelings of, you know, anger or lust, you know, whatever, but let's just stick with anger or something, right? You know, if you get really angry at somebody, there's nothing, I mean, you're already angry, okay? So, you know, there's nothing you can do about that. However, you do have a choice about how you react to that sensation of anger. You can go and beat that person up. You can yell and curse at them. or you can stay silent and just, and not react. And there's a lot to be said for the not reacting, because, while that might not necessarily make it better, acting on it is going to make it worse. Maybe not in the instant, but ultimately it will. These things do spiral. Because, you don't chase after these bad things. So I think, I'm not really certain that it's going to make him more masculine, but I do think it won't hurt, and it's not a bad first step. And we're going to go now to, 8:55.
Thing that I'm never going to do, or I never want to do, is I never, ever, ever want to drink ever again. And here's why. I would always bend on this, even to this day, for occasions, such as dates. Like, if I go out on a date with a girl, it would be like, want to go grab drinks, or should we go grab wine, right? Or if I would, if it's Christmas, if it's a holiday, everybody pours one, I just pour one to fit in. Not even to fit in, just because, like, oh, it's an occasion is what I tell myself. Right, but truthfully, like, here's what I know. I know that alcohol isn't good for you. I know that your body treats alcohol as a poison. I know that alcohol oftentimes has a lot of sugar in it. I know that alcohol lowers testosterone. So why would I want to put something into my body that isn't going to...
I think this one's very problematic. First of all, again, if the goal is just masculinity, it goes back to how are we defining it. A lot of the most masculine men in history and the most masculine men in the world are very heavy drinkers. Often, I'm not saying drinking heavily makes somebody masculine, but it's often heavy drinking is often associated with very masculine men. But then, he says, like, it can lower testosterone and your body treats it like a poison. That's true, and there's other negative things about alcohol as well. However, if there's, unless you're going to be like a monk or something, there's no reason, I'm kind of biased here because, I come from Judaism where this kind of stuff is sort of, aestheticism is like seen extremely negatively. You're not supposed to give up something that you like. And, unless, it's like something bad that you're not supposed to be doing, but like, if there's nothing wrong with like having an occasional drink if you enjoy it. If you're somebody who's got a history of alcoholism in their family, or you don't like the taste of alcohol, or you react really poorly to alcohol, then yeah, by all means don't drink it. But it sounds like Casey is able to enjoy it responsibly. He only does it on occasions, and he seems like he kind of enjoys it. He enjoys it at least, maybe he doesn't love it, but he doesn't enjoy it too much, which is good, but he seems kind of like, the family's around, they're drinking, or if you're going on a date, you're drinking, you have something. Like, he's basically enjoying alcohol responsibly and appropriately. So there's no reason for him to give that up. As for things about it lowering testosterone and, your body reacting as a poison, it's like, well, Casey, yeah, then maybe don't drink if you've got, like, a powerlifting meet the next day. Okay, I get that, but I'm talking like, drinking like on Christmas and like once a month or something. Like, there's no reason for you to give something like that up, and I think it's harmful to give something like that up. Like, yeah, no, is it by itself going to set you back like a huge amount? Maybe not, but you're creating problems for yourself, and you're going down kind of a slippery slope in that sense, because you're always going to take away more and more and more and more. So you can always look for something else to take out of your life, and, that tends to, that's not the path you want to go down. That's not what's going to work, generally speaking. And it's certainly not going to make you more masculine. Okay, let's jump ahead to 10.
That I'm going to try to do over time. This isn't a thing that I'm going to do instantly because I think this is going to be very hard, but if you follow me along on this journey, my goal over time is to remove all sugar. We're talking sugar, whether it's ice cream, right, processed carbohydrates, high fructose corn syrup, anything like that. And the reason being is because I constantly had clouded judgment, and I still do to some degree. And I believe it's because in some way, shape, or form, my dopamine was hijacked. Like, it used to be very, very easy for me to sit down and read.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the Casey spurging there here. I agree with him on this one, sort of, with some caveats. As you guys know, I've had, not to become more masculine or anything, have had it sometime in the past. I don't know, I've completely lost track of time, but I think it was less than a year ago. I believe it was last fall that I had to, I had no choice but to give up sugar. What Casey means in so many words is he wants to give up sweeteners, because he's not going to give up sugar, because technically all sugar is carbs. And so, like, if you really wanted to give up sugar, or even if you wanted to say something like a fast carb, or I know there's fast carbs and there's slow carbs, but even if you wanted to give up like just fast carbs, that would mean you couldn't even eat fruit, which I'm assuming Casey's not going to go that far. But no, I did, to deal with the depression, I had to give up those fast carbs, and it was, at first it was really difficult, then it got easier, then it got difficult again, and, I haven't really been able to stick with it since then, and since my depression's been better, I haven't had to, but it's certainly possible that in the future, if the depression gets worse, I will have to go back on it. So this is something I'm very familiar with. I've done it, Casey apparently hasn't. I have, so I know what I'm talking about. And I've done it several times, and it definitely, for me, made a dramatic difference. The things that Casey mentioned about like clouded judgment and stuff, it does have that effect on a lot of people. I don't think for most people it's going to make giving up sugar, sweeteners, whatever. Essentially just I would say refined, basically no sweeteners, no refined carbs. That's pretty much it. And I think for most people aren't going to get quite as much difference as I did. I think that I probably reacted better, had more positive reactions than most people would, simply because it negatively affects me more than most people. Because as somebody who has depression, the sugar has a more negative impact on me than it does to somebody who doesn't have depression. I did notice big differences, mainly in mood, in concentration, yes, motivation, not really, a little bit, mainly but I definitely felt better. I definitely looked healthier. Wouldn't say that I necessarily looked better. I did lose weight, without trying to lose weight, but, I still had a lot of problems. I still had the low energy. No, it wasn't as low. I still had the fatigue, even though it wasn't as bad. And I certainly didn't look good. I looked a little less sick than I normally did. You guys can go see the videos back from last fall when I was off sugar. And I looked, pretty much like I do now. So, and did it make me more masculine? No, absolutely not. And I wouldn't have expected it to. No, that's crazy. Why would it, that would be like saying you getting your appendix removed for your appendicitis, and then somebody asks you well, did that make you more masculine? And you'd be like, no, why? Of course not. It just, it fixed my, fucked up appendix, but no, it didn't make me any more or less masculine. It had nothing to do with that. That's how this is. It's not going to make you more masculine. Now I'm going to get into the part where I agree with it. In Buddhism, you are not allowed to drink, kind of like what Casey was saying. You're not allowed to drink at all, ever. And the reason is because it, disturbs the mind. Because in Buddhism, you're trying to train the mind, and you can't do that. You're damaging your ability to do that if you, take drugs or drink alcohol. Fine, fair enough, whatever. No dispute there. However, Buddhism got its start before sugar, sugar or refined carbs were widely available. There was honey, and yes, of course, in ancient India they did have sugar, but it wasn't really popular it was just a treat used sparingly. And you could say the same thing with caffeine. Like, yeah, they had tea, but they didn't have coffee. And so far as they did, it wasn't popular or well known. I think that if Buddha had seen it like today, like if he was like in today's society, he would have not just banned drugs and alcohol, but would have banned, sweeteners and, caffeine too. Now, granted, it doesn't disturb the tranquility of the mind in the same way or as severely as drugs and alcohol do, and that might be why it gets a pass, but it does have that effect. And for some people like me, and apparently like Casey, the effect can be pretty dramatic. So if you are trying to make these internal changes or whatever, maybe he's not going about it the right way, but that's what he's trying to do, then yes, I would say, give it up. I do think he's correct. I mean, I don't think he's really utilizing this tool properly, because I think he's just going in the wrong direction. But, he's going to get to the wrong place faster by giving up, sugar and refined sugar and sweeteners and stuff like that. So I do agree with him there on that one. And, I thought I had something else to say about that. I'm sure I did, but whatever. And, so we are next on to 1108. Close enough.
Myself and reach my true masculine potential. So, next, okay, remove all caffeine. Once again, this is going to be one that I'm doing over time by slowly.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop him there because you got the idea. So I think I already mentioned caffeine. I have no choice. I don't really like caffeine that much, but caffeine just triggers my depression too bad. I just can't have it. Chocolate I shouldn't have it. It does make it a little worse, but after my body adjusts, it doesn't seem to make it that much worse than not having it. But whereas caffeine, my body just can't adjust to it. So caffeine, I just have no choice but to give up. Chocolate, which has caffeine in it, if Casey's giving up sweeteners and caffeine, I'm assuming he's giving up chocolate too by default. A lot of people don't realize how much caffeine chocolate has in it. No, I think it's a good goal. I think it depends. It depends. Like, Casey's gonna say, well, it really screws up your concentration, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, I know some people who it doesn't really affect, or it's not even that it doesn't affect them, it's that they seem to kind of benefit from it. Like me, it really takes a hit out of me. Like, I cannot deal with caffeine. But I know some people, like, they've cut down on their caffeine and they do a lot better, but they don't get rid of it altogether. I mean, everybody in my family except me drinks a lot of coffee, and they're all doing fine. Like, would they maybe feel a little better if they cut out the caffeine? I mean, I don't know. It's something they really enjoy, and they seem like they're all feeling really good. They're very active. None of them have problems with fatigue. So yeah, maybe if they were training for something and they needed that extra like 0.001% edge to like competitive, then yeah, maybe it would be worth, giving up caffeine. But if it's not really hurting you, then why give it up? However, Casey is saying that it is fucking with them, so I agree, give it up. If you're struggling with anxiety, there's a good chance if you're struggling with anxiety that you're somebody who doesn't respond well to caffeine or to refined carbs, or other sweeteners. And if that's the case, then you may want to give up, may want to give those things up. It's certainly, possible. Okay. And, 1158. Shoot. Perfect.
Makes you a weaker human. It makes you dependent on a substance. I don't want to be dependent on anything. If you look at what a lot of men are dependent on.
I'm really glad he said this. So he's talking about what he just said. He says, I want to give up caffeine and sugar and all this other shit because I don't want to be dependent on it. The big one he said is caffeine, because, that's like a real addiction where people like need their coffee to function. Okay, fair enough. But what about all the, so you get rid of that dependency, but what about all the other dependencies you're adding? If you can't eat refined sugar anymore, and stuff, well, that's like the entire American diet. That means that you are now dependent on having access to nutritious food. That might not always be there. And there's going to be times when you're on trips or on places or out in places where there is no nutritious food available for you, where you're just either going to have to just not eat or eat the unhealthy American shit that's available. And hey, nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can do it, but it's going to be difficult. I say this as somebody who knows, because I've been through it. I've been through the whole eating healthy thing. And I think like, dude, if I like ended up like homeless or something, or, whatever, and I didn't have access to this kind of food anymore, I would be fucked, because there's like, if I go to a homeless shelter, there's not going to be anything that doesn't have refined sugar in it. And, or it's going to be harder to find it. And like, so if I'm going to like, let's say eat rice or even potatoes or something, I don't just need to go to the store and buy that shit. I need to go to I need to find a place like where I can cook the stuff. So if like, let's say I'm traveling and I'm in a hotel, there's no way I can do that. I basically have to, like I said, I basically have to go without food, just live off fruit or something, or, because I've got nowhere to cook stuff. And it's fine if that's a sacrifice you're willing to make. And, not only that, I would say you probably should do it if you're somebody like me who it really negatively affects. I'm not going to, but that's the thing. So, but you're still kind of dependent on it. And in a lot of ways, it's a worse dependency because it becomes a psychological dependency. Like you start to like, again, if you're somebody who's prone to anxiety and stuff, when there's nothing else available and you do have to eat bad, you're not just going to have the physical effects of eating the negative food, but you're going to have you just broke the, if you're like, if you're addicted to bad food, like most people are, like me, you're like an alcoholic who's back all like off the wagon, and, you started and it's going to be hard to stop, and you're going to psychologically be feeling worse from the beginning. So, you're dependent in a different way. So I see what he's getting at. I don't think he's seeing the whole picture though. So we're going to skip ahead to 12:28. Okay, almost there.
Cannot keep talking about women on this channel to the degree that actually improves your life, because even if it gets views and you think it will, the truth is that it actually doesn't. If anything, it'll make you a weaker man, because now you're focusing on lust, you're focusing on short-term pleasure, you're going to fall off your purpose, and long-term you will not be happy with yourself. This is coming from a guy who has already slept with dozens of women over the years. This is coming from a guy who's had rotations from time to time. This is...
Okay, so, I think this is where Casey needs to check his privilege. There's a few things going on here. It's often the case with Casey. First of all, Casey is the guy who's had all that success with women, all right? The majority of his viewers have not. So, it's one thing for Casey to say that, like, Casey to say, avoid all that shit, or, stay away from it, when he's already, and he'll talk about this later, he's already had it and proved to himself he can have it. And he's already had that experience. The other people haven't had a chance to do it for themselves. So he could give it as sincere advice, but in some ways it's not really going to apply. Like, would Casey himself be saying the same thing if he hadn't proven to himself that he could have rotations and slept with tens or hundreds of girls, whatever? Which gets us to the next thing. Most guys who are out there who are really successful with women, who sleep with a lot of women, I'm not saying there's not an ego part of it, but they're mainly doing it for its own sake. It's mainly because they actually enjoy it more than they enjoy jerking off. They do it because they physically enjoy it. I'm not saying that Casey doesn't enjoy it. He goes on a kind of a gross rant at the end talking about how he does. But that's not really what it's about for him. It's clear from other stuff Casey says that it's mainly an ego thing, kind of like what Roosh V was like. Roosh V went all over the world sleeping with women, but he was never sleeping with women because he liked sleep. I mean, I'm sure he did, but that was never what it was about for him. The reason that he approached it so obsessively, and the reason that Casey hasn't approached it so obsessively, is for two reasons, I'm sorry. One is an ego thing, and two is to fill some kind of void. Now, me, and I think 99%, to borrow from Casey, of you guys watching this, that's not what it's about for you. You know, when you fuck a girl, or even just want to fuck a girl, you want to do it for its own sake. Now there may be an ego thing there. I agree. I'm not saying it's totally ego free, but that's secondary to you. I mean, it's secondary. It's not what it's about. It's maybe even incidental. Maybe not even secondary, just incidental. For Casey, it's primary, not secondary. For Roosh, it was primary, not secondary. And I'm not even sure Casey understands that that's not how most guys feel about it. But anyway, like, in and of itself, is this good advice? Yes. Yes, it is good advice in and of itself. But, again, you know, you have to kind of put it all in context. And it's not, the way the advice is presented, I think, is not reasonable for most of Casey's viewers who haven't had the same experiences and success with women that he's had. Okay, so the next one is, what was that? Is 1344. A lot longer than I thought it would be.
Doing your dating life to begin with, okay? The last thing that I'm trying to do is cut all screens. So any screen time that has to do with, like,
Yeah, I kind of wonder if Casey watched my, well, that one video I had mocking him where I talked about how, you know, to still the mind, because most of the things he's talked about here are stuff that I've done. You know, the quitting caffeine, the quitting sugar, I've done that. The like celibacy thing, which kind of goes into no fap, I've done that. He didn't actually say no fap, but I'm assuming he's going to put that there because he's done it before. I'm not even really sure exactly what does he mean. He's not going to sleep with any women anymore, or what? Because he's already done all that. He's already done like a 600-day no fap, or like a 450-day no fap. So I don't know if he was on a retention thing. I don't know if he did 450 days of retention or 450 days of just no fap while he was in a relationship. It doesn't really matter. But no, I mean, so I've done that. I've done the no drinking because I hate the taste of alcohol, so I'm kind of always doing that. Never swear. I don't really swear a lot, but I mean, okay, I guess I technically haven't really done that. But yeah, removing the sugar, removing the caffeine, and I've done this cut out stream thing. So all of this stuff I've done. And especially, yeah, if you put it all together, it will have physiological changes that will, probably will, improve your mental state. And it will make you feel better. And it's possible, I'm just going to say possible, that improved mental state, will put you in a state that is more conducive to you making these internal changes you're seeking. But by itself, none of these things, even all of these things put together, are not going to make you more masculine. And if we skip the whole masculine, are they going to make you more virtuous even? No. Even then, no. Again, they may very well put you in a state where it'll be easier to develop virtue. As for masculinity, I don't think so. But again, I've done all this stuff, so this isn't me like saying from the side, I've done all this stuff, and granted, becoming more masculine was never my goal, but I made no changes to me, okay? I didn't become more confident, I didn't become more masculine, I didn't start responding better to workouts, all this stuff. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm not saying there's not benefits. I'm not saying it couldn't even help you achieve those goals if that's what you like down the road. But like in and of themselves, it's just not going to have that impact, okay? I'm sorry. It's just not, okay? And, that's all there is to it. All right, now we go to 1440.
when I write all of these down on the board, what I see is I see that the modern world, right, and like to some degree it's not your fault. I don't even like saying that because like if you read any business book, you're literally told to victimize your audience and make them feel like it's not their fault. Like if you look at like Expert Secrets, the book by Russell Brunson, and like he's the internet marketing guy. I've read tons of books. I've read tons of books on business, sales, masculinity, whatever the case may be. The first like couple chapters, he literally like I highlighted one day. I'll tell you what page it's on if I remember to put it on.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. But first of all, is there anything less masculine than reading a book about masculinity? Second of all, what he said about it not being your fault. Yeah, I look. I don't really think that's relevant or whatever. I think it's true, but who cares? I think most of you guys understand that. But what he's going to go on to say, and I don't know. You know what? I'm not even going to watch the last part that I marked. I marked something at 1602, which is where I think he's going to go on to say, this makes the modern world makes men weak and unmasculine. I do think there's something to that. I do think that the modern world, or the standard Western lifestyle, does hurt men more than it hurts women. I do think it makes us men and women prone to depression, and sickness. Now, in a lot of ways, things are better because, there's clean water and medicine and different kinds of treatments. So in a lot of ways, we're healthier than ever. And then in some ways, due to the way we eat and the way we live, with screens constantly in our face and not getting enough sleep and having very high stress lifestyles, in some ways we're actually less healthy. So absolutely, I think that, eating right and getting at least some exercise and, avoiding all the screens and social media and stuff, you do those things and I think you are going to be mentally healthier. But there's also just like society, it feels like society doesn't really need men, or not in the way we used to. Like, women can just be happy either just being or be happy, raising their kids or whatever. Men may love being fathers and raising kids. I don't get it, but some of them do. But for a lot of men, that's not enough. They need to feel, I think a lot of them, need respect and status, but even if it's not that, they need to feel like providers, protectors. And there's nothing wrong with that. They had that instinct is there and it's there and there's nothing they can do about it. And, in fact, a lot of that whole cringe, you better not touch my daughter shit. The thing is stuff you ever hear those cringe boomer guys, talking about saying oh, haha, when the boyfriend comes over, or I show him the gun or something, those guys are just idiots. But that kind of stuff, a lot of that comes from that need to feel like a protector, and, if you, it's just and I'm not comparing men to dogs. I'm sorry if this has come before, but when I had a dog, a long-haired miniature dachshund, there were certain things that she instinctively needed. And one of those things is she instinctively needed to hunt. And she instinctively needed to work. She needed to feel like she was accomplishing anything. And she couldn't be fulfilled if she didn't have that stuff. And men are kind of like that with some stuff. They need to feel like protectors. They need to feel like providers, stuff like that. And in the modern society, there isn't always a role for that. So what you end up with is a lot of these lost guys who, start spurging about masculinity, which is not the appropriate way to respond to it, and it's not a way that's going to help them, but you can understand where it comes from. That's why you have so many guys, you have infinitely more guys who are, well, maybe not literally infinitely, but a lot more guys, who are, more, who are spurging about being masculine as opposed to women spurging about being feminine. Now, such women do exist, but they're big time the exception. It's not a big issue for them. Mostly women are, secure, with just, they might not feel pretty enough or whatever, but they don't have problems with not feeling like real women for the most part. And, with men, it's a little different, because women are still able to fulfill their instincts as ever. What's their instincts? It's, to be a mother and to, which is the ones who do want to be mothers, or, just to live, to just be. And some women are okay with that, just being. And the ones who want to be mother, well, the mother role is still as big as ever. And the father role may be bigger than ever, but that's not, like I said before, that's not necessarily enough for most guys. So, especially you see young aimless guys, falling into shit like this. Now, the main reason I think that, guys get into the masculinity thing is some hope it's going to get them women. But, a lot of it's a thing in its own right. Like Roosh was successful at getting women, and he spurred about masculinity nonstop. And Casey's the same way. So, and I know that most guys aren't like Roosh or Casey, who are, they're both on the spectrum, and they're both, weird, and Roosh is a psychopath. Casey, I can't tell if he's a psychopath or just weird. But there's there's other guys who feel the same way. And, I understand why. That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next.